Musicians, museums, education, and soft people power. And big up, by the way, because I feel like a lot of what we're trying to say and do was echoed by some of the things that you said there. Through my work as a musician, social entrepreneur, and educator, I've been privileged enough to work with people from all cultural backgrounds and from all imaginable living realities. From the favelas of Brazil to the garrisons of Trenchtown, Jamaica, the birthplace of reggae music, of course, has no small thing to teach us about soft power. To lecturing at Oxford University in the Library of Alexandria, doing gigs at both Tates actually, working in prisons, private schools, young offenders institutes, and everything in between. We've learned some very key things about people, or have some insights at least that we think we've learned that are key things about people. Through a creative entrepreneurship program we rolled out across Zimbabwe and other nations, through the Hip Hop Shakespeare Company, which was about really peer mentors and educators and artists teaching the next generation to take up the skills, not just as artists, but as entrepreneurs, for artists to control the means of production and benefit from the advanced technologies that exist in the world and provide opportunities to artists that they really didn't have at any point before today, in many ways. And there are three key points that I think are of relevance to your sector, or at least insights that I think are of relevance to us all as human beings, but to this sector particularly. 1, never underestimate your audience. 2, people are more alike than they are different in ways both bad and good. And music, of course I'm not biased at all being a musician, music is the great leveler. It brings people together like no art, not like no other art. And it may seem odd to those unfamiliar with hip-hop, with hip-hop's genesis, that a rapper would take up the mantle of education and culture so unapologetically and yet still retain his street cred. But I tread a well-worn path. The first person I ever saw give a history lecture was KRS-One. KRS, by the way, for those who are not familiar with him, the very acronym stands for Knowledge Reigns Supreme, over nearly everyone. He's a man many consider to be the greatest rapper of all time, who came from homelessness in the Bronx to teaching philosophy at Yale University. The soft power of rap was first enacted on me to promote education. Very quickly, of course, marketeers realized, from all of the world's leading consumer brands, realized or cottoned on to hip-hop's immense soft power potential. And hip-hop is now much more often used to sell Cristal champagne or fast cars or jewelry than it is to use to sell education. So what can our experiences as musicians and educators offer in the way of insight to a discussion of museums and soft power? I think we can all agree, putting aside the museum's historical baggage for a little moment, that the idea of museums, places of cultural enlightenment, education, that are almost always free to the public is an incredible idea. And we can all also agree, I would presume, that museums have made immense social progress from their foundings in terms of social inclusion, but nonetheless, there are still huge swathes of the population that see museums more of places of cultural intimidation, or at least sites of difference, rather than places that feel part of their city. This is partly because museums know that they are great. They're located, more often than not, in the centers of the most expensive real estate in a given city, and their opulent buildings emit a sense of grandeur to those who don't feel that they belong. Conversely, there is an assumption, often, of a lack of culture in particular parts of a society. There is also a sense that museums are a place of passive observation, where we are the recipients of culture, vessels to be filled with Enlightenment ideals, rather than collaborators and co-creators of an experience, the way perhaps that crowds at a music gig or immersive theatre would be. That's of course not to say that there is no place for art to inspire awe within us, for us to look upon something quietly that we know we could never create. There are, of course. But what is the future of museums?